So hello, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome. My name is Rosemary. It's nice to meet some of you or to see some of you again. Thanks for joining and making books with us tonight. Today we'll be making this refillable hardcover jotter. If you have some bookmaking experience, great. If you don't, that's great too, because it's a relatively simple process. Like I said, we want to kind of jump in and get started kind of quickly because there's a lot of steps. But I have faith we will create our books from start to finish tonight together. Well, then to get started, everyone should have received their materials packet in the mail. Hoping everyone has that in front of them. Wonderful. We'll just start off by going through all the materials inside. I'm going to spotlight my video here. So the class we'll go through the materials that we have, then we'll go step by step in the creation of making the book. And I will toggle between my larger screen here and what I like to call the book cam for some more closer up visuals of the book making. But to start, here, everyone should have received 2 pieces of book board. Which is basically a compressed fiber board, sort of close to cardboard. This is what actually makes our books hardcover. 2 pieces of decorative paper to cover the hardcover pieces. Now, some of you asked for some very interesting and specific colors. Someone gave me like seascape or something. It was really cool. So I hope you like the colors that I chose for you. If not, I apologize. What's cool is technically there's no real right or wrong side to use the paper. So I've chosen this sort of more like aquamarine paper, but there's a ribbed side to it and more of a flat side. Feel free to flip your pages around, use whichever side you prefer. 1 sheet of some thicker end papers, which will go on the inside of our journal. A long strip, like 2.5 by 12 inches of book cloth. This will become our spine wrapper here. And this one especially has a different quality to it, front and back. So whichever you prefer. Since this journal is refillable, we have 2 packs of paper. 1 pack I gave you all is lined. There should be about 10 sheets. And the other pack is just plain paper. It's a little thicker if you wanted to use it more for sketching. Feel free tonight, we'll be making one together. Feel free tonight to mix and match the pages if you prefer. And when we get to that step, I'll let you know. So that's it for papers. Tool-wise, should have received a bone folder. This will be used for folding our papers. A bone folder is a traditional bookbinder's tool used to crease and fold paper. It's also used to score with the point paper, and that's a little bit thicker to then just fold easily on its own. Traditionally, they're made out of bone, but I believe this one's more of like a plastic type bone folder for you all tonight. And awl, spelled A-W-L, this will be used in the binding of our book to pre-poke the sewing stations or the holes when we go to bind. Of course, a needle to bind and thread. I gave you enough paper to in the materials kit to create 2 packs for the refillables, but I gave you 3 lengths of thread. So if you wanted to find whatever paper you had at home too, I figured that might be a fun addition. So you'll just have some extra threads to continue with the project later on. But your thread is about 3 times the length of our spine area, so it's about 15 inches long, each piece. Let's see. Some mat board pieces and book clips. Comes in handy with the binding. A little pot of glue. Hopefully that stayed intact in the shipping process, and a glue brush. And then lastly, just a simple rubber band, a fun little hack to make this journal refillable. Okay, that was, and I popped a little button in there too. But I think that's all. We don't need the button for the making. All right. I'm gonna get this stuff out of the way. All right, everyone good with those materials? On hand, I also asked if you could have, oh, I forgot. I also provided a paper ruler. I feel like these are my signature fun little things. A 6-inch ruler, just in case you didn't have one lying around. But you can use your own ruler if you'd like to. Scissors always come in handy. If you have an X-Acto knife on hand, that's fine too. And of course, always some sort of writing utensil. I prefer a pencil. And lastly, also included in the kit, I remember this time, were some scrap papers. They're just old phone book papers. These I'll use for gluing, but I also have a cutting mat. Or if you have old like junk mail or magazines or scrap paper, we can use that later too. The cutting mat comes in handy when we go to bind the book. All right, lots of things because we got lots of steps tonight. Any questions so far? Comments, concerns?
Can you just remind me, so that these decorative pages are the ones that will be outside, and then this more plain thicker paper will be inside? Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, because we have two pieces. That's actually what we're going to start with. We have the two pieces of the book board, which corresponds really nicely to the two decorative papers. We're going to wrap these. And then this piece will go inside. You'll see it here on the inside of the book. All right.
I like it.
So, first things first, let's grab those two pieces of book board and our decorative papers. And I'm going to pop on over to the book cam so you can see what I'm doing. All right. So I'm just going to work with one pair first. So I'm going to grab one of the decorative sheets and one of the pieces of bookboard. Now this decorative sheet here is quite shimmery on the front. So I'm going to make this the front of my book. I want that shimmeriness. So I'm going to flip it over. And now facing up towards me is the dull side, the side that I don't want on the cover of my book. That makes sense. All right. And essentially what we're going to do is we're going to wrap our pieces of bookboard. So I'm going to set my bookboard here, right in the center. Our decorative papers are 5 inches wide by, this is long enough, but by 7 inches tall here. And our bookboard is 4 by 6. So essentially we have a 1/2 inch buffer all the way around. If you prefer, you can use your ruler, or if you have a ruler on your cutting mat to really line that up. It's also okay if you just eyeball it. So I know it's about centered. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pencil and I'm just going to draw a square outlining where my bookboard is. And let's see. So now you can see that I have my pencil line right where my board should go.
Shoot.
Okay, there's really no mess ups. We'll make it work. All right. So we're gonna dive right in and just start gluing. I'm gonna grab my pot of jade glue. Jade glue is an archival bookbinder's glue. It's pretty flexible for a little bit, so we'll have some play with it. And it dries clear, which is really nice. I'm gonna open up that pot. Put it off to the side. I have my glue brush here. And instead of gluing right on top of my cutting mat, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take one of the pieces of scrap paper. Grab my book board, set that on top of the scrap paper, and essentially paint the glue onto my piece of board. When I do that, I like to start in the center and kind of work in a radial fashion. You don't have to go too fast, but the glue will start drying if we try to paint a pretty picture. So we don't need too much. You can see it's this is a glob here, but it's rather light. I'm gonna smooth some more of this out too. I'll bring it back up to the camera once I have the whole thing nice and glued. And notice how I'm just bringing the brush right to the edge of the book board. We want to make sure we're getting those edges. And it's okay if my brush is falling off because I have this scrap paper to collect it. All right. Down there. And it's okay if you're going a little slower than me. I want to go a tad bit faster so I can show you how this is going to look. All right. So here's a nice even coating. See how I'm even getting the edges here. I'm going to move my scrap paper out of the way. I'll reintroduce my decorative paper. And then right within those lines that I drew with the pencil, just gonna pop my piece of bookboard down. Now, if you want, you can take it on the table here and just kind of smooth it around to smooth. Make sure that that decorative paper is really nicely adhered to your decorative paper. But a nice little tip is to take your bone folder, flip the bookboard around, and then on its flat edge, use the bone folder to just smooth down your decorative paper, getting out any bubbles. The decorative paper that you all have tonight isn't super thin, so there really shouldn't be too many bubbles. If any at all. Sometimes when you're working with like thin paper, it could tear, but this is really nice paper. I think for the most part, we all pretty much have a similar paper, just different colors. All right. So that feels nice and smoothed down in front here. Gonna flip it back over. And there's my first glued piece of bookboard. I'm going to do the same now. I'll let this rest aside.
One quick question.
Definitely.
Sorry. If I have a little bit of like excess, should I just wipe it off now or not get too worried about it? If I've got like a little bit here.
The glue?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Feel free to take your glue brush and wipe it off and put it back into your pot of glue, or take.
Yeah, I just have a napkin. It's not too much, so
oh, yeah,
that works great. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, we will be eventually wrapping around, so that glue won't show up too much. But Yeah, any extra glue, just kind of clean that up. That'll help later. Good question. Thank you. All right. So for those of you who've taken bookmaking classes with me before, you're probably used to me saying bookmaking involves a lot of repetition. So we're gonna do the same to the front cover as we did to the back cover, or the same to the other piece of book board as we did to the first one. I have my decorative sheet here. This is the front of my paper, so I'm gonna flip it around. Take my piece of book board, center that as best I can so that there's about a 1/2 inch on all 4 sides. Take my pencil and mark, draw on the stencil around. That's where my book board's gonna go. I'm gonna move my decorative paper out of the way. The glue is pretty fast drying when it's just on a plain sheet, so I'm gonna reuse my scrap paper, set my book board down, grab my pot of jade glue, and then glue up my second piece of book board. Again, starting in the center. I find the easiest, but do whatever you know, feels best to you. You can always move around your piece of board as well. Make it work for you. Okey-dokey. Perfect. So here's my second piece of book board, all nice and glued up. I'm gonna move my scrap paper out of the picture. Grab my nice decorative sheet. Follow that pencil line and drop my book board down within those lines. Again, pressing down to adhere the paper to the board, then giving it a flip. My bone folder, just smoothing that all down. All right. Perfect. How's everyone doing? Perfect. If you end up getting any glue on your bone folder, chances are in about a minute, you can just kind of scrape that off right with your finger there. Or wipe it off on one of your scrap papers. But they should be relatively clean for now. Depends how messy of a gluer you are. I know it took me some practice. So now I have my 2 pieces of book board with my decorative paper attached or adhered. I'm gonna focus my attention to one board first, and then we'll do the same to the other. All right, So looking at this board, what we're going to do is wrap the edges with the excess paper. That's why we want to leave about a 1/2 inch. If we left less than 1/2 inch of excess decorative paper, we wouldn't have enough to wrap around. And if we left too much, it'd be way too cumbersome and we'd end up with some really sloppy, hefty corners. But first, before we start wrapping, what we want to do is cut off the corners. Now there's a little trick to cutting off the corners. We don't want to cut too close. With my pencil, I'm going to make a couple lines. You all don't have to draw the lines. I just will so you can see where I'm going to cut. And I'll use a straight edge to do this, but again, you don't have to do that. So here's an example of a line not to cut. So this line here, if I were to cut right on this pencil line, I'm cutting way too close to the edge of the board. What we want to do is actually give about 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch or so and cut up a little higher. Here's an example. Sorry, this is all backwards for me. Here's an example of a line that I would cut. There's a little bit of a gap, about a pencil point width or so, or a little more technically about 1/8 of an inch. So this line right here, that's going to allow us to have enough paper to cover the corner and not have the corner pop out when we go to wrap our book or our book. We're going to do this in all 4 corners. So if you have an X-Acto, you can use the X-Acto on a cutting mat. I'm just going to use my scissors and lop that right off here. The angle doesn't so much matter. It's usually about a small triangle or so. We'll do the same with all 4 sides. Notice the width there. It's about the tip of my scissors. And before you go throwing these little scrap triangles out in the garbage, just keep them handy. It's a little bookmaker's tip to keep any scrap papers just off to the side because you never know if something's going to happen. Perhaps when we wrap, there might be a little blemish. You'll have to cover something up. We'll just slap a little bit of glue on one of these triangles and cover it up. Or save them for your collages later or recycle. I try not to promote hoarding. I have way too many fun things myself. All right, so here's my book board now. It looks like a funny stop sign. Little octagon here, stretched. And now we're gonna focus on wrapping. I like to wrap the long sides first. So I'll put my attention towards those. I'm gonna grab a scrap sheet of paper. This time I'm actually gonna open it up a little bit. I think I shipped them all folded to you all. And I'm gonna focus on this one long side here. I'll grab my glue, my pot of glue and my glue brush. And I'm gonna start to apply the glue onto this flap of decorative paper. Now, when we're gluing the decorative paper, just take note that the book board, it's not really finished, so it soaks up a lot of glue, but we don't wanna put too much glue on this flap here. So I got a little more than I want here. I'm just gonna take that off the edge of my glue pot. And as I draw on this glue, I'm making sure that I get to the edge of my flap. because that edge is going to be really important to glue over. But I'm also getting the edge of my book board.
Oh, okay.
So just the edge, where am I? The edge of the book board right here, and then also gluing all the way to the end of the flap. Make sure I'm not setting it back down on the glue area. There we go. All right. And we'll want to work not too quickly, but quickly enough so that this doesn't start to dry. I actually like to, we're going to wrap this edge, but I actually like to take it and instead of wrapping with my hands, now you'll find whatever way works best for you, but I like to actually set it and then lift up the book board to help create that crease. So that gets it over this side and gets it to a 90-degree angle. And then I can flip it around to the front. I'm taking careful note that when I set my board down, I'm not setting it in the glue area. And first I'm pressing down with my fingers because I know I don't have too much glue here. But then definitely use your bone folder as a tool to help smooth down that cloth, that decorative paper there. You can also use the bone folder on this edge to smooth that as well. Perfect. Now you will notice that, let me see if I can get that in better light. There you go. That the cloth, or I'm sorry, the decorative paper does pop out a little bit from the book board. That's totally okay. We'll address that shortly. So I have one side down. I'm going to do the same thing with the other side. I'm going to flip this around, grab my glue, and paint that on this pretty nice tab from my decorative paper. All right, and if you used a little bit too much glue, totally okay. And as you wrapped around, it started seeping out of that wrap. Totally okay, just use your finger, grab it off, use your bone folder, smooth it off, or just some scrap paper, and clean that up. So this whole tab is glued. You take it, lay it down, flip up the board to get that nice 90-degree angle. So now the cloth is up against this edge. And then I'll wrap around with my fingers and use my bone folder to smooth. Here's the area I was talking about that might have some glue seepage. If you do, you can just grab it off with your bone folder, set it off to the side, clean it off with a napkin or something. Or if you let it dry on your bone folder, it should come off as little funky glue squiggles within a minute or so. It dries quickly. Instead of holding up your board and smoothing on the edge, you can also leave it flat. Take your bone folder and run it alongside of that edge. Just a little tip. All right. How are we doing? Are we okay if I go to the top and bottom flaps? Or do we, okay, wonderful. All right. So essentially folding the top and bottom flaps are very similar. We're still going to apply glue to the tab, fold over, right? But of special note are these extra little pieces. I apologize if this isn't going to show super well. are these
Mhm.
extra little pieces of decorative paper right here in the corner. So it's just kind of like wrapping a birthday present, a box, you know, like a shirt box. You're gonna take those edges and press them in. Oops, oops, oops. And press them in. So notice how that's now like folded in.
Okay.
I'll do it to the other side. So here it is just kind of pointing out. I'm going to press it in and create a little fold there. That'll help cover the corner edge of our book board so that when we go to fold our entire flap over, it'll cover up really nicely those corners and make a nice diagonal edge in our book, in our decorative paper. So I'm going to leave those edges folded in on either side. So I folded in the left and right side. Gonna grab, and I'll show you again on the other flap. Gonna grab some glue, glue up that tab. It's okay if you get some extra glue on the book board. Notice I got a little piece there. Totally okay. Okay. Got that all nice and gluey. Notice how there's even a little bit of glue kind of hanging out around that flap there. Totally fine. I'm just leaving it here for it to focus. There we go. All right. Set it back down. I'm going to do that little trick where I lift the book board up. That brings our decorative paper to a 90-degree angle. And then I'll use my fingers to push down. And the bone folder to smooth. Now I definitely have too much glue over here as I smooth out. But I don't care about that because I can take that extra glue and wipe it off on my scrap paper. And since we are, most of us tonight, beginners, totally okay if you get a little glue in some funny spaces. This does dry clear. So don't worry if you don't get it all. Perfect. And here is my first wrapped piece of book board. Well, on 3 sides anyways. I'll turn my attention now to that top flap and I'll do the same. So taking the edges and folding those in. I use my nails to do that, but if you don't have nails, or don't want to use your nails, or have lovely fake nails, or you just got a manicure, you can use your bone folder too to smooth that in. I don't know if I could ever have those beautiful, long, fake or real nails. Sometimes people sport. It's just, I wouldn't be able to maintain them. They'd be chipped and broken within like 30 minutes. So I folded these down with just the bone folder here in solidarity. All right, and I'm doing the same thing. Grabbing my glue brush and popping some glue on that tab. All right. Be careful when you're doing this, the direction of how you're putting the glue on, because as I was moving this way towards this tab that I popped in, it undid. So I want to make sure that I'm moving it in the direction that's going to keep that tab closed, that little flap that we folded over. All right. Do that standing ovation with my book board. And this piece is getting real gluey. I have a bad habit of just moving my book board wherever I please. So I'm gonna fold this piece here. Or if you wanted to, just grab a whole new piece of scrap paper. But I'm just gonna fold mine over. Just to get a nice non-gluey surface. All right, I got more glue poking out from this tab. So I'm just gonna clean that off with my bone folder, with any sort of rag that you have for your fingers. Perfect. Look at this pretty present. So here is our first piece of bookboard, fully wrapped. Ta-da! I apologize, you can't super see it so well in the camera because it is metallic. Perfect. So now we're going to take what we did with this piece of bookboard and replicate it with our second piece. So by this point, you might have enough muscle memory to remember what to do. I'm just going to go through and rename step by step. I probably won't be as thorough as before, but if you have any questions or want me to stop somewhere to go over a particular point, please stop me. All right. So remember, we start with cutting the triangles. If you had a triangle that you cut real well last time, feel free to use that scrap as a template and draw yourself a line, or feel free to eyeball it. I'm going to use my scissors. You might be using your X-Acto knife. I'm cutting those four corners. Pop those to the side. Now I have my elongated stop sign. Little visual cue there. All right, and like I did before, I'm going to focus on the longer sides. Like I said, I prefer to do the longer sides first because I don't like to have to fold in the tabs and work with such a long piece. So for the long side, all I got to do is fold them over. And then for the short side, it's a little easier for me to deal with those moving in the tabs and then folding it over. Just makes it a little simpler. Gonna grab a new scrap sheet. Brand new, why not? A pot of jade glue. And I'm gonna glue over this long flap. Again, not using as much glue as we did with the piece of bookboard. And then getting the edge of the bookboard as well. Perfect. Let's fold this flap. I'll move it away from that glue line a bit. Do my little trick with the bookboard, raising it up 90 degrees to get that edge. Setting it back down, make sure not to set it in the glue area. Use my bone folder to smooth the edge of the bookboard. Take my fingers or the bone folder, fold over the flap, the tab. And then using the bone folder to smooth that whole tab down. Again, grabbing any excess glue, pushing that off to the side, whether that's with a napkin or on your scrap paper. flipping it over and doing the same with the other long side, the other long tab. And again, using the same scrap paper, but moving over a little bit from the original area that I glued as to not get any glue on the nice front of our book board. All right. Smooth this down. Ooh, I got a lot of glue there. So here's an example of having a lot of glue on my tab. I am literally just going to take my bone folder and smooth that down. And then put the excess onto my scrap paper. That way my hands don't get gluey. All right, perfect. Use the bone folder on the edge. My paper got real gluey, so I'm going to fold that in half. Now I'll focus on the top and bottom flaps, the smaller ones. I'll start by folding in the edges. Where am I here? There we go. I'm going to do that with my fingernails, but you can also do that with your bone folder. It's a little easier for me to do it with my fingers up closer to the camera. Notice how that's just folded over just a little bit. This one here I had cut a little larger. Where am I here in the video? There we go. So I'm going to fold that over a little bit more. It's very slight, but you can still see it. Okay. Set it down, grab my pot of jade glue, and glue that tab. Sounds like a game show. Glue that tab. Sorry, sometimes I crack myself up with really bad jokes. I apologize. If anyone else has some bad jokes, well, not bad jokes, but like silly jokes, please let me know. I'm happy to share. Type them in the chat if you'd like. Oof. I think I was distracting myself. I got too much glue on this tab. So for that, take a little scrap sheet. Just wipe that down. Not an issue. This part's gonna get covered up anyways. Funny. Kristen said, I was literally just thinking you sounded like a game show. Ooh. I had a little bit of glue on the front here, so I'm just cleaning that off too. And I'm working on the last tab. If you're already done, cool. If you're still only on the first book board, no worries. We all work at our own pace here. But if you need any tips or want me to take a look at yours in particular, please let me know. I'm happy to help. All right. It's real windy here today. I don't know about anywhere where you guys are, but I can hear the wind. All right, smoothing down my last tab.
there much difference between jade glue and wheat paste?
That's a good question. I haven't worked with wheat paste too much. The jade glue, it's a PVA glue. It's a polyvinyl acetate. It is archival. I'm not sure if the wheat paste is archival. Don't know. We sell both here in the shop. And I know with the wheat paste, it comes as a powdered form. Whereas this is not, it comes already liquid and ready to go.
When you say archival, what do you mean by that? That it's archival glue?
That is not going to like over time, it won't fade any of your anything that you're gluing with. Or, you know, if you looked at an old photograph and it's been taped and it's like yellowed on the back or like discolored something, the pH in the glue is, I believe, like neutral, so it's not like too acidic that will eat away at anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's better for more like longer lasting applications. I don't think Elmer's glue is archival. It kind of works in a very similar way, so it's a little more liquidy. That's why we didn't give you just run-of-the-mill glue. Want these books to last for you. All right. Get rid of this piece of scrap paper. And now I have my 2 pieces of bookboard all wrapped and ready to go. All right. How we doing here? Give me a thumbs up if you're ready for the next step. If not, I'll give another couple minutes or so. Finish up. Okay. You're finishing up wrapping your book boards. Great. For those of you ready to move on to the next step, you'll just need a longer piece of like 2.5 by 12-inch book cloth. We chose the book cloth for the spine and to basically mend these two together, these 2 pieces of bookboard together to hold the book together, because bookboard is rather strong as it is woven, a woven cloth. I'm sorry, book cloth is strong as it is a woven piece of cloth. If you look really closely.
So our book cloths, like they're just cloth that is then dyed in a certain way or something like that.
Yeah. So it's just a cloth made specifically to cover the book board. Typically, we would be taking these pieces and covering the whole thing with the cloth. But this book, we just reversed it because we wanted the spine to be really strong.
Okay.
And if you put the spine in the book, in the decorative papers rather, that paper is a little thinner. So I was worried about the longevity of the book in that way. But yes, it's a special cloth that is, if you notice, it almost feels a little like smooth or plastic. I believe it has a special coating on it to just make it a little more wear resistant. Sometimes this book cloth is in linen. I'm not exactly sure what material you all might have received. We work with a bunch of remnants donated from a local bindery. So.
Is the shiny side the inside or the outside?
Technically, the shiny side, I believe, should be the outside, but I'm going to reverse it on mine because I like the more matte finish. So
Okay.
It's really up to you. I think so anyways. All right.
So put the side you don't want outside up facing you.
So just the same way that we did it with the hardcover books. Yeah. So this is the more saturated side. I want the duller side of my book cloth to be on the finished piece. So I'm going to set the duller side down. And I'm going to set my book board on top. And again, the piece of book cloth's a little too long for the camera here. But what we're going to do is essentially glue our 2 pieces of board onto our cloth and then wrap around, just like so that it becomes our hinge, essentially. If you see this on the finished book here, our 2 pieces of board, and then the cloth was used as a hinge and wrapped around. But you'll notice that there's a little gap in between each board, and that gap is about, let me see, what did I do here? About a 1/2 inch. So in front of me, I have my long strip of book cloth. I have my 2 pieces of book board. And if you want to measure this out carefully, you can. If you'd rather eyeball it, that's fine too. I have my ruler here. The strip is 2.5 inches wide. So I'm going to set one piece of book board 1 inch in and the other at 1.5. And that'll give me a nice 1/2 inch little spine piece there. And where I set the book board is basically centered on the 12-inch long piece. So if the whole piece is 12, this right here is 6. That means I have 3 inches of cloth at the bottom and at the top of my hinge to fold over. They won't quite touch, but that's okay. They might touch. Doesn't so much matter. So that's how it's gonna look when it's all glued, but first we gotta glue it, right? So I'm gonna take this off. And what I wanna do is actually apply glue to my entire strip of cloth. If you prefer, we can do the same with our covers as we did with the decorative paper. So just drawing a line where that board's going to sit. Come on. Make sure your boards are straight. Mine are wobbling on me. There we are. So here are the 2 areas where my boards are going to sit once I'm done gluing the entire strip. I'm gonna take a nice fresh piece of scrap paper. And just like the book board, I'm gonna start from the center of my cloth here and work out. Again, you glue whichever way kind of feels best for you. Really make sure you get the edges. A little glue goes a long way. Remember now that any glue might be seeping out on the cover of your book, so you want to try to minimize too much oozing. It's a fun word I don't get to say too much. Oozing. Yeah. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Frank Lloyd Wright stained glass, but this kind of reminds me of one of like a sort of craftsman stained glass piece, just with the rectangles and the motion of the brush strokes of the glue. All right. So now my whole gosh darn sheet of book cloth is glued up. Just gonna fold my scrap paper over. So I'm still working on the scrap paper. Set that down. And then set my pieces of bookboard down in the areas that we previously specified with our pencil. Perfect. All right. Now I'm going to take that bottom flap, move it up. We want to make sure that our edges are really nice and smooth. So I'm going to take the bone folder, smooth that edge. Same with the top. Fold that over. Nice smooth edge. Smoothing it down. And notice this little well here, this area where the spine is. We're really going to want to take our bone folder and just press that down and smooth. The book cloth is pretty strong, so don't be afraid to give it some good pressure to glue that all in. It is okay if it gives a little bit, like it's not quite glued exactly to the edges there. Because it's glued enough here in the center. I'm just gonna fold this for a second here so I can take a look at the front. And back, really making sure that there's no glue oozing out, but that looks really nice. Woo. All right. When I folded my book, I realized that my bookboard my book cloth kind of came to like a little point here. So I'm just gonna take my bone folder and smooth that edge a little bit. Sometimes it's a little inevitable with the folds. It doesn't look bad. Just want to soften that a bit. So here's our little book cloth hinge.
I'm a tiny bit behind. You rubbed it down in the middle with the book cloth, the bone folder in the middle, just to.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, just like at the edge of the book board where it hits the cloth, just take the point of your bone folder and press that in. It's not really going to stick too much because what the book cloth really wants to do is adhere to the other side of the hinge right in the center. But just to be able to give it a little kick towards that piece of book board is all right. That'll enable the hinge. I just think it looks so smart with the little piece of book cloth here. I really like it. Hope you're starting to love your books too. And as I folded this over, I'm just kind of taking stock of how flat my book boards are landing on top of each other. Setting that down, and then giving it a good smooth. How's everybody doing? Any questions? Anything needed to be repeated? I realize these are a lot of steps. Beautiful. So essentially, since this is a refillable journal, what we're making right now is the shell, the cover. It basically acts as a folder for the stitched paper that we'll hold inside. I'll show you a modification too. Actually, in the book that I had used for the demo, the paper is stitched directly into the spine area here. You can do that with me tonight, but then know that those papers are always going to be a part of this journal. If you want to make it truly refillable, I'll show you that too. So just to know that there are some modifications. How we doing? Does everyone have their little hinge done? Yes. Oh, beautiful. Nice. I see Rebecca's got hers.
Question.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know if I missed this part or not, but when I fold out, does that make sense? I don't know. Is that normal? Is that fine?
Let me
I can't.
yeah, let me see.
Oh, hey. Oh, wow. Okay. Hi.
Sorry.
I don't know, like it's like this, and then these parts at the top kind of go up. Like you can kind of see it goes up.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Right?
So I mentioned that a little bit. It
Okay,
will
sorry.
do that just a little bit. What you'll want to do is set that back down, and then you can use your bone folder and sort of smooth that out a little more to try to mitigate that.
Okay. Sorry, I missed it. I was a little behind.
All right, no worries.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. I'll, move your spotlight so we're not just looking at Kristen working over here. Perfect. How's everybody else? Any other questions about their little folios here?
Mine is not totally even when I fold it, and I'm assuming that's just because I didn't get it quite right on measuring. Is that probably right? I mean, it's okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. So yeah, it was probably like one of two things. Either, yeah, when you measured, they weren't quite where they were, or maybe you did measure, but then
Right.
a little bit, yeah. Practice makes progress. So not too bad for a first one if they're a little off. Once we pop the rubber band on and stuff too, you might be able to kind of zhuzh it a little bit so it looks even. We'll see. All right, Susan, how's yours? Nice. Perfect. I think we have something similar. Beautiful. Okay. Okay. And Jamie, it looks like yours is looking all right too. Kind of. You want me to take a look or you got it? No, okay. Okay. So now that we pretty much all have our lovely little folios made, we're going to create the last step, and that is grabbing our fun metallic paper here, and we're gonna pop that right on the inside. So the final paper should be, if I measured correctly, about like 1/8 of an inch from all corners. Mine's, I'm holding it up so it's a little crooked, but you'll see that there's a little gap at the top and bottom, because you really want to be able to see that book cloth wrap around.
Mhm.
So I'm going to set this down now onto the book can. You probably won't be able to see the whole thing. Let me see. Where's my book can? There it is. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to glue up this page, and then we're going to obviously glue it to our whole whole folio here. And as we do that, we're gonna really wanna make sure that we're getting inside this spine area too. Notice how let's see. In this finished book, you can see how the, yeah, come on. Sorry, these intricacies aren't always the best.
Mhm.
You can see how the book, this inside end paper here kind of goes inside. Try showing you flat down. I'm gonna grab, I believe this is our last thing that we're gluing, so I'm gonna grab my last piece of scrap paper. And this paper is pretty much double-sided. There's not really a right or wrong side, so choose whichever you will. And I'm gonna take my pot of jade glue and glue this up. Again, I like my radial pattern, but however you prefer. You don't need a crazy amount. And chances are you'll probably have some glue left over too for some other projects. The glue brush, since this is the last thing we're gluing tonight, the glue brush, sometimes folks use them one-time use. I find that if I just run them under some hot water and don't pull too much at the bristles, you can use them for as long as you'd like, as long as they'd hold up. This paper might curl a little bit on you, but it's pretty sturdy. So if you wait until after class to clean your brush, you should be okay. I'll clean my brush after class, so it should last. Really making sure I get my edges here. Okay. I'm bringing my boards over. Glue, glue, glue. All right, and then I centered this end paper here as best as I could and started smoothing it down with the bone folder. I like to focus on the center parts and then kind of work my way out to the edges. And now for the spine part here, I'm going to take the pointing part of my bone folder and press. Kind of get that. Careful not to press on too hard. You don't want to tear the paper. But I'm just kind of giving that a little score. And as I do that, I'm also going to fold just to feel that out. There we are. That fold's going to make that crease pretty much just naturally for you. I'm pressing the spine a bit with my bone folder, smooth that down. Nice. Okay. So I tried to work a little fast with that glue, so you'll see that I got a pretty nice even at the top and side here. but it's a little different on the other side. I think I was trying to work a little too fast, but that's all right. It's a handmade book. I give myself some little mistakes, I suppose. Happy accidents. I'm not Bob Ross, though. I don't know how to paint like him. Don't want to. But if you do, that's cool. All right. Yeah. So here's our little hardcover folio. I'm calling this a folio. It's kind of like a folder for what we'll be making. A folio is literally just one sheet of paper folded in half. I do recognize this isn't quite just one sheet of paper, but kind of acts just like a folio, opening and closing. So that's what I like to call it. Perfect. Okay. I'm gonna set my glue brush to the side now since I'm done gluing. But I will take care to put the top on my jade glue. I don't want that drying out. I noticed sort of towards the end, my glue was getting a little harder to work with. So definitely capping that up will keep it nice and moist. Okay. So the majority of this book is creating this hardcover piece here with the decorative papers and the book cloth. The second portion of this book, which shouldn't take too long because I think a few of you may already know how to create the stitch, is filling out the refillable portions for the inside. So let's see, it is 6:50, class ends at 7. I would say we might just be running maybe like a couple minutes late. We should probably end on time though, just to give you all a little awareness of time. How are we feeling? How's everyone's folio look? Feeling okay? Oh, that looks good. Nice, Susan. How's yours, Anna? I see a smile.
I think it's fine, other than, as I said, it's not even, but that's okay.
It's okay. We're all noobs. It's all right. Kristen, Jamie, Rebecca, yours look all right? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, wonderful.
Mhm.
All right, so let's set this to the side to dry. I'll leave mine flat. If you want to, you can put a sheet of scrap paper in between and then set something heavy on top. But this glue's pretty fast drying and mine looks real good, so I assume yours probably looks all right. I don't replace the spotlight. So if you want to set a heavy book on top, that's cool. Or just leave it off to the side. Rule of thumb usually after you create a hardcover book is you want to at least leave some pressure on top, at least for a couple hours, just so it doesn't start to bow, but I think we're okay. I did this first one and turned out all right. All right, I'm gonna shift my attention now to the refillable portion of this journal. I'll work with the lined paper, the 10 sheets of lined paper. Again, I also gave you all 10 sheets of this little bit thicker plain papers. Feel free to mix and match. Usually, I try to do no more than 10 in the booklet that we'll be creating. Hello, cat. In the booklet that we'll be creating, because anything thicker won't fit within our journal. Actually, let's see. I think I'll do this paper instead. All right. So I'm going to take my 10 sheets, and of course we are going to fold them in half. You'll use your bone folder to do this. I like to fold each sheet individually so that I come to a really nice point. I'm going to replace the spotlight to the book cam now. I like to fold each piece individually so they come to a really nice point, and that'll make our papers stick together and our book eventually lay a bit flatter. So here's our folio. One paper folded in half. I'll do the same. The remaining 9 papers. All right. And so with all of our 10 folios, what we'll want to do is take those, open them up, and stack on top of each other. Stack all 10 so that they become something that resembles a book, right? What we're building is a one signature text block. Grouping of pages into one signature or one bound group of pages. And because we folded each page individually, these pages come to a really nice point, or a real nice V, when we stack them all into our one signature text block here. All right. And once all of our pages are folded and stacked, I want to temporarily bind these pages together with the book clips that you all received. So to do that, I'm going to take these little mat board pieces and set one on the front and back of my booklet. And these will help to protect the paper. So I'm going to take my book clip here and clip the grouping of pages together. Like so. And then on the opposite side.
Okay.
So you have a little something that looks like this. As long as your book pages are clipped together, it really doesn't matter how your book clips land. I just don't recommend clipping directly over this crease here, over our spine area, because this is where we'll be creating our binding. And our clips will get in the way. All right. So I'll imagine I probably went a little too fast with that step, so I'll let everybody get caught up on clipping their folios together. And I'm going to grab out, for the next steps in all, a ruler, a pencil, and then eventually our needle and thread. So give me a thumbs up or a funny face when you're ready for the next step. And again, I apologize. I know we're almost to time here. If you need to scoot off, this will be recorded, so you can always watch it a little bit later. But if you don't mind staying on too, we'll finish this up together. This is the first time I've done this particular journal online, so thanks for rolling with me. Okay, I got one thumbs up. How are we doing? 2, 3, 4. Okay, wonderful. I don't want to ever go over if I know that you guys aren't ready yet. Okay, thank you. So here I have my one signature of folios clipped together with our book clips. I'm going to take my ruler now. And this paper is funny. It's about 5 7/8 tall here. And right now what we're going to do, the ruler that I gave you all is 6 inches. What we're going to do here is mark 3 dots for our 3 sewing stations, the 3 areas where we're going to thread the needle and thread through, poke the needle and thread through. So I'm going to make a mark at 1 inch. And this mark is going to live right on the crease. So here's my center line. I'm going to draw that in, but you all don't have to. So my first mark is going to be at the 1 inch. Oh, maybe the paper is 5 paper's 5 3/4, I see. So my next mark will be 1 inch in from the other side, so that'll be 4 3/4. And then halfway, which will be right here, I want a dot right in the center of my spine area. So half of 5 3/4 is 2 7/8. If I did that math wrong, please let me know. So I like to use a ruler for this step, but sometimes bookmakers kind of go willy-nilly and they do it intuitively and mark what they feel is center and enough from side to side. So I like to show you with the measurements, but going forward, if you feel more intuitively to draw those marks, that's fine too. There's really no wrong way. So many different ways to bind a book. So there's my mark at 1, 2 7/8, and 4 3/4. I'm gonna label this sewing station number 1, number 2, and number 3. You don't have to, just for the ease of the stitching, I will. Once those 3 sewing stations are marked, you're going to grab your handy dandy awl. And awl is just basically a needle on a stick that helps you pre-poke the holes in your booklet so that you don't have to do so with your needle and thread. I like to hold the awl in the palm of my hands, like so, and then use the force of my whole hand to push through the paper to make those puncture holes. I do not recommend pushing directly down and then giving a twist. Sometimes what bookmakers will do is create a cradle. You can do that easily with an old phone book or an old book. Opening up the book and then setting this inside and punching. But for our purposes tonight, what I like to do is take the paper, hold it at about a 90-degree angle, and using the awl almost flat, pushing through. And notice how that all's gone through to puncture that sewing station. What you want to take note of this is making sure that your fingers aren't directly behind that area, just supporting the back of
Okay.
the slit, but not directly in line of that needle. Paper is relatively soft, so shouldn't be too tricky to push through. But if you need a little bit more leverage, you can always try to like twist as well. This is why I recommend working on a cutting mat or grabbing like those old magazines, just to protect your work surface. Like maybe that brand new table you got. So now I've successfully used my awl to punch 1, 2, and 3 sewing stations. I'm going to move my attention to my needle and thread. I'll just talk about this for a second. So just listen in as you're maybe finishing up punching your holes. The needle that we're working with is a bookbinding needle. It's straight all the way through so that the eye doesn't sort of jut out like it may with a sewing needle. And the thread we're working with is a waxed linen thread. I give you all 3 different colors of thread, I'm pretty sure, so simply choose whichever one speaks to you for this first binding. And unlike sewing, where you would double up your thread, in our book binding tonight, we're just going to use this one length. This length is about 5 times our spine here, our crease, so it's roughly like 15 inches long. And I'm going to just thread the needle. So bookbinder's thread is waxed, which is really great for a couple reasons. One, it helps to thread the needle pretty simply because the strands don't fray because they're stuck together with the beeswax. And it also helps to create really nice knots because the wax sort of holds your thread together. And then the wax helps glide through the paper a little easier, so it's not going to tear your paper. And the other thing I really like working with waxed linen thread is that you don't have to really work too hard to keep it in the spot you want it to. So I like to put a little tail on the edge of my needle. This one's a little short. It's probably about 2 or 3 inches. You don't need something real long.
Oh my God, I can't get it through.
Oh no! You got it. You got it. I believe in you.
Oh my gosh.
This is something I can't help with over the interwebs. Just
Oh my.
if you need to, like maybe twist,
Yeah.
twist the edge. Maybe
Let's see.
come up.
Here it comes. Come on.
And I know the needle head is so tiny because it's straight.
There it goes. Okay.
Wonderful.
It frayed a little bit, but then I can twist it back up. Okay.
So instead of knotting this, I'm literally just going to take and twist. And then the wax will help to hold that thread together and also adhere the thread a bit to the eye of the needle. So that's not really going anywhere. I'm pulling at it. It's not moving. This definitely beats tying right at the needle here to hold your thread together. We don't want to really do that. It's going to create too large of a hole. It'll be annoying to grab later. All right. This is a really quick stitch too. So you don't need something that's going to last a lifetime there. Okay, to stitch, I think we're all ready. What I'm going to do is take my needle. I'm going to go through sewing station number 2 from the inside of my book text block here. I'm going to pull that through. And then I got this tail here. This tail, what I want to do, it's just a little habit of mine. I'm putting it underneath this book clip. Just really the metal part. I don't even bother putting it underneath this black part of the clip. That's going to hold it in just enough. Okay, so here's the inside of my booklet. I'm gonna flip over. Here's the outside. This is a symmetrical stitch, so honestly, it doesn't matter which sewing station we choose to go through. I'll go through this one right here. I'm gonna take my needle, pop that through. If you're having trouble pushing the needle through, it might be because you're not in the same angle as you pushed with your awl through. So just kind of do a little feeling around there. You're gonna pull, and there is one simple stitch. I'll flip the book around. And now on the inside of our text block here, my thread is popping out of sewing station number 1. You might be thinking we're going to 2, but you'd be wrong. We're actually gonna skip the center entirely and pop into sewing station number 3. Make that long simple stitch. We'll flip around. And then again, symmetrical, we're just gonna take our needle and thread and go right through that center sewing station. There we go. That's the end of our stitching. So like I said, it's super simple. This is called a pamphlet stitch or a saddle stitch. It's one of the simplest hand-stitched books you can create. This is 3-hole, utilizing 3 sewing stations. There are more difficult varieties using 5, 7, however many holes you'd prefer. It's just a really nice, easy way to stitch some leaflets together. And our last step is to tie, but I want to just double check with you all. I'm going to take this tail, pop it out. So now I have a nice plus sign. Before I pull on that plus sign, I just want to make sure, and I want you all to take a look too, that you have one tail to the left side and one tail to the right side of your center stitch, and that your center stitch sits on top. You see what I mean here? Darn shadow. So notice how my stitch sits right here, and then to the left and to the right are my other stitches. If I had something that looked like this and my tail was sitting over top of my center stitch, I would end up tying my tails together, and then my center stitch would be willy-nilly. See that? So we want our tails to either side, pull taut like a plus sign, and then as we tie, we are literally tying around the center stitch to hold everything together. Just a personal preference, I like to double knot. You can just do one knot if you prefer. Sometimes folks like to leave a little tail for a bookmark, put some beads on. There's many modifications. But I like to just cut it. And I like to leave about a ½ inch or so, about my fingernail width or length. Just to prove it was handmade. I don't like to get too close because God forbid I ever need to retie this. I'm not going to be able to retie it with little nubby parts. So this allows me to retie if I need to. I'm going to take the clips out, because we don't need a temporary binding anymore. now we have our full piece bound. Ta-da. And because this journal is refillable, what we'll do is we'll take this piece here, set it inside of our hardcover folio. Looking pretty good. And I can use my rubber band to just keep that in. So I'm going to take that and wrap it around here. That inside. Ta-da. So because this paper was a little thicker, I think it's not wanting to sit too flat. Probably gave you all too many papers for that. If you use the lined paper, that should have sat a little flatter because this was thin. Something to note too, if you wanted to make this journal just with one sheet of paper and not refillable, what you could do is do that entire step that we just did, but punching and binding through this entire piece here. So you'd set this on, clip the book clips on, use your awl and push all the way through your text block, through your end paper, through your book cloth here, and then bind in the same way. So just a little modification if you wanted to make it a forever journal instead of a refillable one. Just little modifications. So I'm just going to pop this rubber band in. I apologize, mine isn't closing super well. I think I got a little too excited giving you all too many papers. Maybe 8 would have been a little better to keep that closed. I tried it at first with the thinner one, so that's just my bad there. But set a nice weight on it and it should be fine in the morning. Plus I think my rubber band's a bit thicker than yours. But then this becomes a really nice shell for a refillable journal, maybe to-do lists and jotters. I know that I'm always using multiple books and pages and sorts of things for my weekend to-do lists. So I might end up using this, throwing away the insides after a couple weeks and then making my own new one. Yeah. And the hardcover provides a really nice durable book too. So how are we doing? Any questions, comments, concerns, gripes, excitement?
I like it a lot.
Oh, good.
I think it's really cute.
Let's take a look.
I'm pretty happy with that.
Oh, nice.
Can you possibly like write down the materials we used tonight?
Yeah, maybe when you send the recording, would it be possible to do that? Is that okay?
Yeah, the materials.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
A list that I have just for myself internally to make sure that everybody gets the correct materials in their mail sheet. So yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Because I know like if I go and try to find the art materials, I'll be like, you know, we used this stuff that was like cardboard paper and this other stuff that was kind of like wallpaper, but not stuff.
Oh no, that's cool. We did a hardcover journal with some vintage wallpaper covers, which is really
That's
Oh,
awesome.
that's a great idea.
beautiful.
It's
So
a glue free.
Rebecca, were you about to say something?
Was there something about this type of glue, once it freezes, it's no longer sticky?
Potentially. Is yours sticky?
Yes, mine is, but
Oh.
I was not doing anything in December that involved glue from the other side of the country.
Yeah, so I've done some research about it because we have a couple kits here at Book Arts that incorporate glue, like our Kusudama kits and some other bookbinding ones. And I think that's just like in the process of the glue manufacturer shipping it to like the store and then us buying it from the store, buying it from like a third party or something, like there's no way to know how many times the glue has frozen and then unfrozen. So we've kind of tested it and just kind of trusted that it should be okay. The J glue that we buy, we purchase actually from Talus. They're a bookbinder supplier based out of New York City, and they do not ship any glue in the winter months. So we make sure to purchase glue from them during the summertime. So I hope that it came to you okay. But if it's sticking, you should be good. We decided to just chance it.
So how often do you guys do like the bookbinding classes?
Yeah, so we were doing them every other week, but we currently are on a short hiatus. We just got some funding information for a lot of our other educational outreach programs, which is great. So we're focusing on that right now, but we'll have some more classes up shortly. And we just started doing in-person classes, which is really cool. So that's been taking up some of my time. But be on the lookout. We'll definitely have at least one a month going forward.
Cool. And do you guys have like an email what are those things when they send you emails like, oh, this month we have this. Usually I don't sign up for those, but
Mailing list.
yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Tomorrow, once like the Zoom video has done its thing, I'll send a recording with the material list, and then at the bottom of my email, usually there's a thing to sign up for the email list, but I'll make sure it's towards the top too if you wanted to.
Yeah, great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Rosemary.
Oh, thank you, Jamie. Very nice meeting you.
Yeah, pleasure. Well, I'll probably be signing up, so we'll see you around. This was very fun.
Thanks, and thanks for dealing with the little overage here. Sorry about that.
Yes, okay. I ate dinner, so I feel all right.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it. First time I
Yeah.
did it online, so I appreciate you rolling with the punches. I'll know for next time.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much. It was fun to do, and I wouldn't have been able to do if it wasn't online. So there's a plus side of.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Yeah,
Looking
very
forward
excited
to the
hear you
next
do more
one.
online.
Bye.
Have a wonderful rest of your day, everyone. Enjoy your books.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, Rosemary.